The obstacle course stretched across the base like a gauntlet designed to separate the strong from the weak. Rope walls, tire runs, mud pits under the merciless California sun. Marines gathered at the starting line, faces set with determination. Corporal Daniel Torres stood among them, 240 pounds on a 5'9" frame. His uniform stretched tight across his chest and shoulders. His face was round, open, the kind that made people smile before they made assumptions. Behind him, voices carried on the wind, low enough to sound like conversation, loud enough to be heard. "How's Torres still here? Man looked like he ate the obstacle course." Laughter rippled through the ranks, not cruel, just casual, the kind of comment that becomes background noise until it becomes who you are. Daniel's jaw tightened. He adjusted his gloves. His breathing was steady, calm. He had heard it all before, every variation, every joke, every doubt. They thought his body told them everything they needed to know about him. They didn't know that the man they dismissed could carry twice their weight. They didn't know what he was capable of when it mattered most. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Military and Veteran Stories so you never miss these true tales of courage, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Corporal Daniel Torres had been hearing it his entire life, too big, too slow, not the right build for a Marine. He had grown up in South Texas, the son of a construction worker and a school cafeteria manager. He was always the big kid, the one picked last for basketball, the one who heard whispers when he walked past groups of classmates. But Daniel had something most people didn't see: strength, not just physical, though he had that in abundance, but the kind of strength that came from being underestimated every single day and choosing to show up anyway. He joined the Marines at 19. His recruiter had looked him up and down with barely concealed doubt. "You know this isn't going to be easy for you, son. The course has weight standards." Daniel met his eyes. "I know, sir. I'll meet them." And he did, barely. He passed basic training. He qualified as a rifleman. He earned his Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. But the whispers followed him. In formations, in the chow hall, in the barracks late at night when Marines traded stories and someone always brought up Big Dan as the punchline. He never fired back, never defended himself. He just kept working, kept lifting, kept running, kept proving that he belonged, even when no one wanted to see it. At Camp Pendleton, 3 years into his service, Daniel was assigned to 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, an infantry unit with a reputation for being hard, fast, and unforgiving. His platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Ramirez, was old school, a lifer who believed Marines should look a certain way, move a certain way, talk a certain way. Daniel didn't fit the mold. The first time Ramirez saw him in formation, his expression said everything. "Torres," Ramirez called out, "you passed your last PFT." "Yes." "Staff Sergeant, 285. A perfect score was 300. 285 was respectable, but Ramirez's eyes said it should have been higher. "Keep working on it," Ramirez said flatly. Daniel nodded. "Yes, Staff Sergeant." But no matter how hard he worked, it was never enough to change the way people looked at him. The assumption was always the same. He was slow. He was a liability. He was the weak link. In the barracks, the jokes never stopped. "Yo, Torres, you gonna finish that? Big Dan's plate looks like Thanksgiving every day. How's he gonna hump a ruck through the mountains? Dude's gonna collapse halfway." Daniel absorbed it all. Every comment, every laugh, every dismissive glance from officers who looked right past him when selecting fire teams. He told himself it didn't matter, that actions spoke louder than words. But the truth was, it wore on him every single day. 6 months later, 2nd Battalion deployed to Afghanistan, Helmand Province, a place where the terrain was brutal and the enemy was relentless. The unit set up at forward operating based wire, a dusty outpost surrounded by mountains and hostile villages. Patrols went out daily. Firefights were common. Casualties were inevitable. Daniel was assigned to a rifle squad. His role was simple: carry the extra ammunition, provide suppressive fire when needed, and keep up. The problem was, no one believed he could keep up. On his first patrol, the squad leader, Corporal Hayes, pulled him aside. "Torres, you good to carry the 240, the M40 machine gun. 27 pounds of steel and firepower. Most Marines hated carrying it for more than a few hours. It destroyed shoulders and backs." Daniel nodded. "Yeah, I got it. Hayes studied him. It's a long patrol, rough terrain. If you need to swap out halfway, just say so. I won't need to. Hayes didn't look convinced, but he handed over the weapon. The patrol pushed into the mountains. The sun was brutal. The terrain was worse. Loose rocks, steep inclines, narrow paths that forced the squad into single file. Daniel carried the M40 without complaint. His breathing was steady. His pace never faltered. He didn't ask for a break, didn't ask to swap out. By the time they returned to base 8 hours later, the other Marines were exhausted, shoulders screaming, legs trembling. Daniel set the machine gun down and walked to his bunk without a word. Hayes watched him go, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Huh, he muttered to another Marine. Maybe Big Dan's tougher than he looks. But respect didn't come that easy. One patrol wasn't enough to change years of assumptions. Over the next few weeks, Daniel kept proving himself. He carried the heaviest loads. He volunteered for the worst shifts. He never complained, never slowed down, never gave anyone a reason to doubt him. But the jokes continued, the dismissive comments, the way officers' eyes slid past him when selecting teams for high-priority missions. It didn't matter what he did. His body was the only story people wanted to read. Then came the day everything changed. The patrol was supposed to be routine. A sweep through a village on the northern edge of the battalion's area of operations. Intelligence said the village was quiet. No recent activity. No known threats. Intelligence was wrong. The squad moved through the narrow dirt streets in a loose formation. Children watched from doorways. Old men sat in the shade, eyes following the Marines with unreadable expressions. Daniel walked near the rear, the M40 slung across his chest. His eyes scanned windows, rooftops, alleyways. Something felt off. The air was too still, too quiet. Then the world exploded. The RPG hit the lead vehicle, flipping in onto its side in a fireball of twisted metal and black smoke. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions at once. Rounds cracked through the air, slamming into walls, kicking up dust. Marines scattered, diving behind cover, returning fire. Voices shouted over the radio. Coordinates, casualties, chaos. Daniel hit the ground behind a low mud wall and brought the M40 up. He squeezed the trigger, sending a stream of fire toward a rooftop where muzzle flashes flickered. The gun bucked in his hands, hot brass cascading onto the dirt beside him. The enemy fire was relentless. The squad was pinned down, caught in a kill zone with no clear way out. We've got wounded, Hayes shouted from somewhere to Daniel's left. Jameson's hit. Carter's down. Daniel's head snapped toward the overturned vehicle. 2 Marines were visible, lying motionless in the open, exposed, vulnerable. Hayes tried to move toward them, but a burst of gunfire drove him back behind cover. We can't reach them, another Marine yelled. We need air support. Air's 10 minutes out. Hayes screamed back. We don't have 10 minutes. Daniel looked at the 2 Marines lying in the street, then at the enemy positions, then at his own squad. Pinned and unable to move. He made a decision. Without a word, Daniel dropped the M40 and stood up, fully upright, fully exposed. Torres, get down. Hayes screamed. Daniel didn't get down. He ran, straight into the kill zone. Round snapped past his head, dust kicked up around his boots. He didn't stop, didn't slow. He reached the first Marine. Jameson grabbed him by the plate carrier and hauled him up onto his shoulders. 240 pounds of Daniel Torres, 180 pounds of wounded Marine, 420 pounds moving through enemy fire. Daniel ran back to cover, legs pumping, lungs burning. He dropped Jameson behind the wall and turned around. Torres, stay down, Hayes shouted. Daniel ignored him. He ran back into the open. Carter was heavier than Jameson, unconscious, dead weight. Daniel hooked his arms under Carter's shoulders and dragged him, boots scraping through the dirt, bullets cracking through the air. He made it. Back to cover, dropped Carter beside Jameson, turned around again. There's no more, Daniel shouted. Torres, you're gonna get yourself killed, Hayes yelled. Daniel didn't answer. He just ran. The 3rd Marine, Lopez, was conscious but bleeding badly from his leg. Daniel grabbed him, threw him into a fireman's carry, and sprinted back through the storm of bullets. 3 down, 1 to go. The 4th Marine, Reed, was the farthest out, 30 meters from cover, lying motionless near the burning vehicle. Daniel's legs were screaming. His lungs were on fire. His vision swam with heat and exhaustion. He ran anyway. He reached Reed, grabbed him, lifted him, and turned back toward the squad. Every step felt like moving through concrete. His body was breaking down. His mind was screaming at him to stop. But he didn't stop. He made it back to cover and collapsed, gasping, his entire body shaking. 4 Marines, for lives, carried out of the kill zone by a man everyone said was too slow, too heavy, too weak. Hayes stared at him, mouth open, unable to form words. Daniel just leaned back against the wall, chest heaving, and closed his eyes. Air support arrived 3 minutes later. The enemy scattered. The squad extracted. All 4 wounded Marines survived. Back at the base, the story spread like wildfire. Big Dan, the guy everyone joked about, the Marine they said couldn't keep up. He had run into enemy fire 4 times and brought back for men who would have died without him. Staff Sergeant Ramirez found Daniel sitting outside the 8th station, staring at nothing. Ramirez sat down beside him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ramirez said, "I owe you an apology, Torres." Daniel glanced at him, but didn't answer. "I judged you," Ramirez continued. "I saw what I wanted to see. I didn't see what mattered." Daniel's voice was quiet. "It's fine, Staff Sergeant." "No," Ramirez said firmly. "It's not fine. You saved 4 lives today. You did something most Marines couldn't do, and I spent months treating you like you didn't belong." Daniel looked down at his hands. They were still shaking. "I just did what anyone would do," he said. Ramirez shook his head. "No, you did what no one else could." Word reached the battalion commander, then the regimental commander. Daniel was put in for a commendation. The official citation praised his extraordinary courage, under fire, and selfless disregard for his own safety. But Daniel didn't care about medals. He cared about the 4 Marines who were alive, because he didn't listen to the voices that told him he wasn't good enough. The jokes stopped. The whispers disappeared. When Daniel walked through the base now, Marines nodded. Some saluted. Others just met his eyes with quiet respect. He was no longer Big Dan, the punchline. He was Torres, the Marine who carried his brothers home. Months later, back at Camp Pendleton, Daniel stood in front of a formation of new recruits. Staff Sergeant Ramirez had asked him to speak, to share his story. Daniel wasn't comfortable with speeches. He wasn't good with words, but he stood there anyway, looking out at the young faces watching him. "I'm not going to tell you that your body doesn't matter," he said. "It does. You need to be strong. You need to be fit. You need to be ready." He paused. "But I will tell you this. People are going to look at you and make assumptions. They're going to decide who you are before you open your mouth. They're going to judge you by things that don't tell the whole story." His voice was steady now, stronger. "The only thing that matters is what you do when it counts. Not what people think you can do. Not what you look like. What you actually do when lives are on the line." He let the words hang in the air. "I carried 4 Marines out of a firefight. I'm not special. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who decided that proving people wrong wasn't about words. It was about action." The recruits listened in silence. "So whatever people say about you, whatever assumptions they make, let them, and then show them who you really are." Daniel stepped back. The formation was dismissed. As the recruits filed out, one of them, a young man with a similar build to Daniel's, hesitated. "Corporal Torres." Daniel turned. "Thank you," the recruit said quietly. Daniel nodded. He understood. He had been that kid once. And now, maybe, that kid would carry someone else home one day. Years later, Marines still tell the story of Big Dan Torres, the Marine who ran into a kill zone 4 times. The Marine who proved that strength isn't about how you look. It's about what you do when everything is falling apart. Daniel Torres never sought recognition. He never demanded respect. He just showed up, did the work, and let his actions define him. And in the end, that was louder than any words could ever be. Moral: true strength isn't measured by appearance. Sometimes the person everyone underestimates is the one who carries everyone else home. If this story moved you, don't forget to show your support. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more military and veteran stories. We bring you true tales of courage, sacrifice, and honor. Stories that remind us of the quiet strength carried by those who serve. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never forget the heroes among us.